Welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner, and I'm privileged to be joined by my friend, the editor of Hard Case Crime, the one and only Charles Ardai. How are you,
Hello, how
mate?
are you? It's
Good.
great to see you. I was just before we started recording, I was complimenting your bowler and your umbrella, which makes a terrific background.
Thank you very much, mate. All carefully thought through, and as I said to you off camera, thanks to my brother Neil. So thanks for that, lad. Yeah, that's a great piece of John Steed thinking from him. Uh,
Exactly.
hen- Hence the fact that I'm also wearing the vest or waistcoat, as we say in the UK today. This is all just for you, Charles.
Yes,
So,
all just for me. So, and on my part, having just come from New York Comic Con, which ended yesterday, this is Monday morning after Comic Con. So if I seem a little bleary-eyed, that would be why. I'm in honor of that wearing my Superman colors. There you go.
yes, excellent. I love it. I love it. Well, sticking with that comics theme, we are here, of course, to talk about Volume 2 of Gun Honey, Blood for Blood. Gun Honey Volume 1 is one of the most successful Titan comics under the Hard Case Crime imprint comic books of all time. It was a big success for you, big personal success for you. Before we talk about Blood for Blood, how did you feel about the reception to Volume 1?
Oh, it was amazing. You know, you put together a comic book, a story about any new character, and you hope that people will be drawn in. But you don't know. You know, you might find that the first story you tell about a character is the last one you ever get to tell. Not every character becomes Sherlock Holmes or James Bond or Superman. So when Joanna got the sort of heartfelt response from critics and then readers, it felt great because I knew I had more stories to tell about this character, and this meant we'd get to tell them.
Yeah, and what's the concept for Blood for Blood Volume 2 of Gun Honey?
So to go backwards, Joanna Tan is an international weapons expert. She doesn't take on assignments as an assassin, but she'll supply you with the weapon you need, wherever you need it, whenever you need it, whatever the weapon is, no questions asked. At the end of the first volume, which has no subtitle, it's just called Gun Honey. It's available in graphic novel compiled form in stores everywhere. At the end
And
of the
from the
first
links
volume,
attached to our conversation.
oh, that's even better. I love it. Thank you. So at the end of that adventure, she's taking a well-deserved rest. She's on a private island off the coast of Malaysia, where she was born. And somebody back home in the United States is starting to imitate her, starting to conduct clandestine sessions, including committing murders using her MO. And so the law enforcement of the world are on her tail. And apparently the person who's doing this to her, framing her for murder, is someone who has a deep personal grudge against her. As it turns out, it's someone we very briefly met at the end of the original Gun Honey series. And so we're going to build on that early Easter egg, and we're going to discover who this villain is that's trying to put Joanna behind bars or 6 feet under.
Absolutely wonderful. And once again, you're working with the artist Andrew Kang. Is that right, mate?
That's right. Yeah. So Andrew Kheng is drew all the interiors and some of the covers for the first series. He's back for the second. He's a phenomenally talented young guy. He's fairly new. I think Gun Honey is the first credit that he has on a professionally published graphic novel. But what a future he has ahead of him. He draws like a dervish. His figures are gorgeous. And of course, everyone who comes to Gun Honey, I hope some come for the story, but the beautiful art and the beautiful women are part of the appeal. And that's very much to Ang's credit. So he has penciled all of Gun Honey Blood for Blood, which is good because the first 2 issues are out already. And he's inking as fast as he can to get the last 2 out in time for our deadlines. He's a pleasure to work with, and I'm very excited, hopefully, to work with him again on Gun Honey Part 3 and 4 and so on.
Fantastic, mate. One of the many things I love about Gun Honey, which, as you know, is right at my own personal noir alley, as it were. And one of the many things that I love about Gun Honey is the amazing variant covers that you've put together on this series. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because you've done something really special with all of that, I think.
We set out originally to do maybe 4 covers per issue to give collectors a chance, a little bit of variety. They can pick the one they like best or collect them all. But what we ended up discovering was that there were quite a few artists who wanted to play in our sandbox, and they came to us and said, is it okay if I do a cover? Or they went to a retailer and teamed up for a retailer exclusive cover. And we had incoming inquiries, frankly, faster than I ever expected. And so I love the idea as a creative person. I love the idea of having an artist come and give their vision of what your character might look like, what circumstance, what situation, what clothing or lack of clothing. It's all a pleasure to see. And so we generally have taken the let a thousand flowers bloom school of thought. And if somebody wants to do a Gun Honey variant cover, and the person is a talented artist, and I look at their portfolio and I love what they do, I'll generally say yes. And the result was that Gun Honey Blood for Blood, the first issue, had 35 covers. That's perhaps a little bit more than you need. But in fairness, some of them were variants of each other. So there was the Virgin version of one that also appeared with the cover furniture on it, the logo and the title. So it's not really 35 different pieces of art, but it probably was something like 25. And that was thrilling to me to see so many different artists with so many different visions. Adam Hughes came back to do a second cover. He was one of our artists for the first. And then artists who had never done one for us before, like Art Germ, Stanley Lauk, did a gorgeous, gorgeous cover. And then some artists whose work I wasn't familiar with personally just knocked it out of the park. So yes, I have one copy of each on my shelf, and I hope there are some other collectors out there who similarly have gotten the full range and gotten the full Gun Honey experience.
They really are a wonder to behold, actually, and for everybody, everybody watching this again, this amazing array of variant covers for not just issue 1 of Gun Honey Blood for Blood, but 2, 3 onwards, can be checked out at the links attached to our conversation. And I thoroughly urge, if you're a reader and you're a fan of crime comics, that you do exactly that, because some beautiful work on display.
Thank you. And, I give credit to Titan Comics and the team at Titan Comics. Jake Devine has been working with me editing the book, and Ricky Clayton and John also has been incredibly helpful. And these guys are the soul, the body, the engine behind everything that Titan Comics does, but in particular Gun Honey. So when we have 20 covers or 25 covers, it's their hard work behind the scenes that makes that happen. The artists, of course, create the art, but the machine wouldn't run without the phenomenal Titan Comics team.
So that's editor Jake Devine and co-publishing directors Ricky Clayton and John Jevitkowski, who both of whom they're all guys I work with very closely, as you know, and are indeed supremely hardworking guys. But I think the devotion to what you and Uncle Kang have achieved on Gun Honey is complete, and that's the thing. It's all really led by your creative vision in the first place, I think, mate.
Thank you. We're beginning the process now of imagining what the future for Gun Honey might be. We are working with a television production company here in the US and another one in Asia to try to get a Gun Honey television show off the ground. Who knows if that will happen, but a script exists, and I know that it's being shown around. And then on the publishing side, we've been talking about not just doing a third installment of the core Gun Honey story, but expanding the universe, the Gun Honey cinematic universe, if you will, in the same way that maybe John Wick was originally focused on just one character, and now there are other side movies about side characters in that world. We might identify side characters in the Gun Honey universe as well and do separate books about them. So we're playing around with ways that we could expand the world, because we all love it so much. We enjoy playing in it, we enjoy visiting it, and we know readers enjoy it too. So next year you might see just one more installment of Gun Honey, or you might see 2.
I think that's a wonderful thing. I mean, that's what I really love about noir crime comics universes, the way that they can become so richly layered. I mean, it's something that Brubaker and Phillips have done with their criminal titles. So
Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, writer and artist, who are phenomenal. They were kind enough to say a few nice words about Gun Honey as well, which I appreciated enormously, really from the bottom of my heart. Ed's been a friend for years, but only because of this shared love we have for this kind of pulp fiction and pulp crime fiction. He discovered Hard Case Crime when all we had ever published were novels. We had never done a comic book. And he showed us Criminal, and we showed him what we were doing, and we would swap advertisements in the back of each other's books just for fun, just because we loved what they were doing and they loved what we were doing. And so the fact that we're now playing the same sandbox even more because we're doing comics is very exciting. I wish Ed and Sean would do something for Hard Case Crime Comics one day, but I know they've got their own universe to tend, and there's only so much you could do. One person is only a human being. Even 2 people are only 2 human beings. But wouldn't it be great if we could do a crossover between Gun Honey and something of Ed's?
Mate, that would be phenomenal. As you know, I'm a huge fan of theirs, as I'm of yours, so that would be heaven on earth for me. I don't think, outside of Gun Honey, I don't think noir crime comics get any better than the Criminal series, and indeed their current Reckless series, which is amazing.
Yeah, Reckless, absolutely. And there are a number of others as well. They're just top rate, really top rate artists. And then the other thing that I've talked about, jokingly, but you never know, is what other characters in comic book fandom. I just came from Comic-Con, so you saw all the cosplayers dressed up as Harley Quinn. I think there were more Harley Quinns than there were anything else. A few Poison Ivies. This year, a lot of Wanda Maximoffs. But I thought, wouldn't it be great? Every time I saw a Catwoman, I thought, wouldn't it be great to have a Joanna Tan, Selina Kyle crossover? Now, I don't think DC will ever let us do it, because I think that Joanna's penchant for not wearing very much might scare them off. God forbid Selina Kyle might be caught with nothing on. But I think that would be a dream crossover. You know, Joanna breaks into places to leave something behind, and of course Selina breaks into places to take something out, and the two of them could really bump heads.
I think the confluence of that would be absolutely fantastic. It'd be lovely.
But I know, you know, DC is now owned by a big corporate conglomerate, so the odds of it happening are low, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Never say never, mate, right?
Never say never again. I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah. Hey, so on this very note, this rich theme that we're drilling down into of noir crime, of course, you're the editor-in-chief, the guiding light behind the hard case crime novel imprint. What have you got coming up in the near future, Charles?
Oh, it's a good question. You know, it's fun to juggle the traditional novels on one hand and the comic books on the other, because they're so different. But we have a novel coming out now by someone who's perhaps best known, certainly in this world, for his comic books. So Max Allan Collins, who is an old friend of yours as well, has been working in parallel paths for years and years. He did the Dick Tracy comic book. He did the legendary, famous graphic novel Road to Perdition, and of course the seminal Private Eye book, Ms. Tree, which we're collecting in multiple volumes. There is a new Ms. Tree compilation coming out fairly soon, I think the end of this year.
And by the way, anybody watching this conversation with myself and Charles on our same YouTube channel can find my conversation with Terry and Max about Volume 4 of Mystery Deadline, which, compared to when we're recording this, recorded the other day, but by the time this comes up, it'll be out as well.
That's great. So the mystery comics are fun, and they've been really flying off the shelves, and they should be, because people, you know, no fan of crime comics should be without a collection of mystery. But on the novel side, he's coming out with a really outstanding novel called The Big Bundle, which is the first time his very famous Private Eye Nathan Heller, who's been the star of more than a dozen books until now, it's the first time he's ever written a Nathan Heller Private Eye novel for hard case crime. And for his first case, he's tackling a genuine true crime, which is always what he does in the Nathan Heller books. This fictional private eye solves a real crime from the pages of history. And in this case, it's a kidnapping that was very famous in the 50s. It's much less well known now, so it's kind of fun to discover, which had the biggest ransom ever delivered in any kidnapping in the United States in history, and only half the ransom was recovered. And one of the questions is, what happened to the other half of the money? It's a big bundle. What happened to half the bundle? And it turns out that the notorious Teamsters union leader, Jimmy Hoffa, before he disappeared, might have had something to do with it. RFK, JFK's brother, might have had something to do with it, or at least he was trying to prove that Hoffa had something to do with it. And these two famous faces appear in the book, and then a lot of people you won't know, but it's a beautifully written private eye novel in the tradition of Raymond Chandler or Dashiell Hammett, and it is just a joy. So The Big Bundle, I think that comes out in November, unless there are printer delays and shipping delays, and in this COVID world, you never know, but it should be out for Christmas for sure. And then the other thing, just this week, I mean, by the time this airs, it may be in the past, you may be able to get it already. As I'm speaking, it's one day away. Robert Silverberg, the famous science fiction writer, also early in his career wrote a small number of crime novels, usually under fake names. And there's one that has never been reprinted. He wrote it under the name Stan Vincent, a name he never used before or since. And that Stan Vincent book came out in 1960 and then never got reprinted. It's called The Hot Beat, about an LA music superstar who falls on hard times and is accused of murder, and he's on death row, and his ex-girlfriend has to decide whether she's going to be able to save him or not, with the help of an intrepid newspaper journalist. And it's a fun book. It's really, a lot of our current writers are trying to write in the style of the old pulp novels. This is an actual old pulp novel written in the 60s, and it's just a joy to read, because if you have any taste for this kind of old-fashioned stuff, getting to read it the way it was originally written, it's like a time capsule. On Twitter today, I said it's your best time machine back to the late 1950s, short of a DeLorean. And hopefully people will pick it up and enjoy it.
I mean, there are two outstanding books, and all credit to you, mate, for shepherding them through and publishing them. It's just, I think this has been an amazingly rich year thus far, 2022, for Hardcase and
for Titan. I mean, you've got some phenomenal books, phenomenal comics, and I have the best job in the world. I get to read books, pick out the ones I love most, and then tell other people about them. That's really a phenomenal privilege. And then to get to write some of them as well, that's even better. So Gun Honey has re-energized my writing muscles, which is fun. I started as a writer before I even became an editor. But both sides are just a treat. And when I go on these various blogs and websites and I see somebody writing, I picked up Gun Honey. I thought the girl on the cover was sexy. I didn't know if I'd like the story, but oh my gosh, that's a great story. That just makes my heart soar. Now, that's not to say every review is always positive, but you know what? Even knowing even the bad ones, once in a while you read a negative review, that's okay too. Knowing people are picking up your work and reading it and having a response makes me happy.
Hey, I will share with you a piece of feedback that you might not have yet heard, which is a couple of days ago, last week, in fact, and people can find this out there on YouTube. There is a podcast called Bronze and Modern Gods. It is run by John Hughes, not John Hughes, the late lamented film director.
The film director, right?
Yeah, but John Hughes, the executive in charge of production for many years at Rhino Records. He's the guy who's responsible for the Monkees' 2016 album Good Times, which won a load of awards and was a massive hit. A very smart guy, a big comics fan. He and his partner Richard Brown run this, and his comics presenting partner Richard Brown run this podcast, which is on YouTube, Bronze and Modern Gods. I was on there talking about the UK comic scene actually, but a big diversion we took, fueled by the amazing alternative covers you've lined up for Gun Honey.
Great.
Was about Gun Honey, and Richard Brown's a big fan. Loved everything that you'd done with the variant covers, but again, was drawn once he actually read the book, was totally hooked by the content.
Oh, that's great.
It was wonderful to hear.
That. I have so many Rhino albums, and I think dating me, tape cassettes. I've got so many things with that Rhino logo on them, and what a treat to know that somebody like that is reading your work and enjoying it. That's wonderful. Thank you for letting me know. I'm going to go check that podcast out.
Yeah. I thought you'd dig it, and he used to look after the Grateful Dead as well. If you're a man of a certain age, all these bands that are very meaningful to you.
It's funny. We have another book coming next summer, and it's a little early to promote something for next summer, but I'm going to tell you about it. It's called Low Down Road. And it's written by Scott Von Doviak, whose first novel, also for us, was called Charles Gate Confidential and knocked people's socks off. And this is a love letter to the 1970s. It's like a love letter to the Burt Reynolds highway chase movies of the 1970s. It's great. And there's a scene in it at one point where they meet some hippies in a psychedelic VW microbus. And they're heading to the Grateful Dead's last concert. And the guy says, "It's so sad. Jerry's about to retire. He's had enough. He's not going to want to do it anymore." And all I could think of was all the decades that followed that, where the Grateful Dead kept threatening to retire, and it never happened. So it's just a fun little thing.
No, I mean, Jerry Garcia is a man who only retired when he passed away, right?
Yes, exactly. There's only one way to end the Grateful Dead, and that's
by being dead. It's so true, mate. I mean, it's so wonderful the work you're doing with Hardcase. So I'm Andrew Sumner. This is the one and only Charles Ardai, and we've been talking about the wonderful Gun Honey Volume 2, Blood for Blood, and also some of the great books that are upcoming with Charles's Hardcase Crime imprint, The Hot Beat and The Big Bundle, which everybody watching this conversation can order from the links attached to our conversation. It's always so great to see you, Charles.
Thank you. It's terrific. Can't wait to do it again.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.